Hello, I am Pete from Comic Books Transformed, and I am with my good friend over there, Mr. Brian Corsair. Brian, are you ready to take a trip all the way back to 2018?
Yes, sir, I am.
Pre-COVID, pre a lot of craziness, and it's time for us to talk about Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which came out in 2018, and we were talking about this because its sequel is finally coming. When is it? Is
Yes.
it next week or?
No, it's June 2nd.
Oh,
So
okay, we
two
got some
two
time.
weeks basically.
Nice. Yeah, Brian had this really great idea of sort of like revisiting movies that have sequels this summer. And boy, am I glad that you chose to do this one, Brian.
God, this is such just a fantastic movie. It really is.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, can you say anything bad about this movie?
I think I had like one nitpick, and I almost feel like who cares about this one nitpick too. But we'll get to it in the discussion. But I was thinking that when we talk about this movie, we should kind of talk about why it's so good. Like, how did they make this? It almost seems like lightning in a bottle. And when you look at it, the people behind the scenes, there was three directors, but I think that for the most part, Lord and Miller are the ones that get the credit for this one. Would you agree? Or
Yes, I agree.
which is weird though, because I did a little bit of research, and this is the first movie that what do you call it? Christopher Miller did not write. It's just Phil Lord.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. It's written by two people. It's written by Rodney Rothman and Phil Lord. Okay, and there's three directors. There is Bob Perischetti. He did. He was the writer for the Little Prince. Like there was a remake of the Little Prince in 2015. He was the head of story for Puss in Boots, the first one. He was a storyboard artist for Shrek, to Flushed Away, Monsters vs. Aliens. So he has like a big animation history,
Interesting. Yeah.
right? The second person is Peter Ramsey, who directed Rise of the Guardians. Did you ever see that movie?
I know of it, but I have not seen it.
Yeah, it's that movie with like the Tooth Fairy and Jack
Jack
Frost.
Frost. Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
you know what? I might have seen that.
yeah. My kids really liked it. It came out in 2012, and Peter Ramsey's the first African American director to direct a major American animated feature.
Hmm.
So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah.
And then with this movie, this made him the first African American director to be nominated for and win for Best Animated Feature for Spider-Verse.
Wow.
Isn't that freaking crazy?
Impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, last but not least, I want to tell you a little bit more about him. He was the production illustrator on Predator 2, Backdraft, Independence Day, and Fight Club, among a whole bunch of other movies.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, last but not least, the other director was Rodney Rothman, who was one of the writers too. And then he was also a writer on 22 Jump Street. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Besides this, they did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Did you see that one?
I've seen that. Yep.
Yeah. What did you think of that one?
It was a standard. It's not Disney. It's I guess is it DreamWorks?
I think it was DreamWorks. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a standard like kids movie. It was entertaining, I guess.
Yeah. Unless like Sony has its own digital thing, which it might. Because I mean, essentially, there's like three, right? There's like DreamWorks. There's Disney, obviously, and then there's Illumination, which made like Minions and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Are you looking it up right now?
I'm trying.
Okay. And then, of course, Lord and Miller did the Lego Movie, which I think in itself was sort of a revelation too.
Yes, but I honestly think this. I mean, God, if you want to argue which movie is more influential to what's since I don't know if I could. I mean, I like this movie way better than the Lego Movie.
Agreed. It's kind of interesting. Wait, what was that last thing you said?
Like 1,000% better.
Oh yeah. Well, what's interesting about the Lego Movie and this is that they're both like essentially just like all different characters from a toy box, and you're just mixing them all together, right?
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
Because you have like in Lego, you have all these different franchises all mixing together, and then in this, you have all different Spider-Man mixing together. And then they also did 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street. I don't know if have you watched those movies or?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first one. The second one was okay, I guess, but the first one was really good when I first saw it. Like I remember, like that was like a revelation with like Channing Tatum.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he was just like that guy from those dancing movies, and then he was like in everything after that.
Right. Yeah, I think he was in like G.I. Joe before that, and I was like, oh, he's kind of lame. And then in this, he was like really funny.
Yeah, he was really good. Yeah.
So
and,
I mean,
and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs was produced by Sony Pictures Animation. I guess that's what I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
So I guess they do have their own thing.
Yeah. So I guess there's like 4 studios, and I bet you they also did that movie. Not Lord and Miller, but Sony Animation did that movie of like the Millers versus the Machines. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I watched like half of that once, and I fell asleep, and my family finished it, and I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, we bring up all these movies, and I think we actually use the term revelation once or twice. Maybe revelation is sort of an intense word to use, but these movies have obviously had an impact on pop culture in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Like Lord and Miller have clearly influenced, genres, definitely the superhero genre. And what I was going to say right off the bat was that this feels like a very cool movie, Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, this movie like oozes style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On Twitter, there was this thread going on like last week where it was like, what is a scene that once you saw it, you knew you were watching a good movie and you were in good hands? And they had all these different shots like The Matrix and Star Wars, all that kind of shit. For me, this movie starts out right when it says the comic book's code in the very beginning. I was like, oh, this is going to be something else, isn't it? Do you have any moments like that for this movie?
I mean, I think I was kind of blown away by even the previews. We got a preview of this at the end of, or is the trailer? And God, what was it?
I think it was Homecoming.
Maybe it was, but I was just blown away by it. It was the scene where Miles first meets Peter B. Parker.
Right. Yeah.
And just the way it looked and everything, it kind of like blew me away, honestly.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought up the second, Spider-Man Homecoming, right? Because this movie was in production starting as far back as 2014, but by the time this movie came out in 2018, there had been 6 Spider-Man movies prior.
Yeah.
So, like, you really needed to do something different and, like, switch up the formula. And that's why they wanted to focus on Miles Morales for this one.
Yes, and another reason for the production, too, is the animation in this. So, yes, this is an animated movie, but every frame has, like, hand-drawn touches over it. So it would take, like, I read some crazy fact where it was like it would take them like 4 months to do like 10 seconds or something like that.
Holy
something
shit.
Crazy like that. That sounds like wrong, honestly, because that doesn't seem humanly possible. But they said that they wanted to have a unique look and feel, and that drawing over the CG animation is what gives it that unique look to, and it was very, very time consuming, and that may explain why it's taken so long to get this sequel out.
I see. Okay. Well, do you think that COVID pushed it back too?
What didn't it push back?
Yeah, right. Good point. Well, going along with what you're saying about the animation style, right? And I feel like this whole fucking video so far has been like, hey, Brian, have you seen this? Have you seen this, Brian? But, like, have you seen Puss in Boots: The Last Wish?
I have not.
Okay. So when I was watching it with Pepper and Clementine, Pepper was like, oh, this looks like Spider-Verse, she said. And it's because I think that they're kind of taking that style of that drawing over the CG to make it, like, look cooler. And I have to admit that, like, I think she was right. And then also that the Mitchells versus the Machines, I think that has that same kind of approach too.
And the new Ninja Turtle movie.
Oh yeah. So do you like this style?
Yeah, it's got. I mean, it was very striking at first, and the more you see it, the more watered down that effect kind of has on you. But I still do like it. It hasn't been overdone to me yet, but I mean, I could see it being overdone in the near future. Let's see how Turtles is, and maybe we'll decide if it's too much or not.
Right. One of the things that kind of trips me out watching this movie is that there's almost like that effect. You know when you go to watch a 3D movie and you take the glasses off and it has that kind of blur?
Yeah.
This movie is just like filled with that.
Yeah, totally does. Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about why it's so good? We kind of talked about the behind the scenes. Do you think that the voice acting is a big reason why it's an awesome movie?
The voice acting is great. The story is the story and character arcs are really what shine here to me.
Okay.
Miles' hero journey and the leap of faith, all that. You just really his arc and also Peter B. Parker's arc too.
Mm-hmm.
His whole his life fell apart and essentially because he didn't want to have kids with MJ, and him meeting Miles was kind of rejuvenates him and kind of makes him see things in a different way, and he leaves on a great note. Leaving everything in Miles' hands as even though he's only been had powers for like 2 or 3 days or something like that. I think is what the end line says.
Yeah.
It's like he left it in good hands.
Yeah, and with Peter B. Parker, I think that this movie does such a good job seeming dangerous. Like it really seems like any character could die, maybe besides Miles, because you have like 2 significant deaths in this movie. But I think that the first death really sets the tone of like anybody could die, and it could be pretty brutal how they die.
Yeah.
So
yes, Chris Pine Spider-Man, gets smashed by Kingpin.
Yeah,
and that was really shocking too.
Yes.
And I remember too is just at the beginning of the movie, I was you hear that familiar intro story, that they rehash a couple times, which I thought was great.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't the other Peter Parker. What's going on here? That sounds like Chris Pine. Like, what is this?
Right. And the way that he's killed by Kingpin, that beginning, like it made me think that Peter B. Parker could die at any point, and he almost kind of wants to die. Just going along with that story arc you're talking about.
Yeah. And to add to that too, I mean the Spider-Verse comic, although it has very little to do with this movie, the whole premise of that is lots of other Spider people dying.
Yes. Hey, well, while you're doing that, why don't we kind of go back to Ultimate Comics and Ultimate Spider-Man, and let's talk about how that Spider-Man died too.
Oh my God, how did he die?
Do you want me to tell you real quick?
Yeah. Refresh my memory because it's been a while since I read it.
Okay, so one thing I like about this movie is that the Green Goblin in this movie is like the Green Goblin in Ultimate Spider-Man, where he's like the Hulk, right? He's big, he's giant. So that Norman is in jail. He breaks out, he kind of hulks out, and he gets like his own version of the Sinister Six. But the 6th member is Spider-Man, and he basically forces Peter to, like, I think, attack the Triskelion, which is like the headquarters of the Ultimates, which are like the Avengers, right? I know you know this, but I'm just telling everyone else. And they like fuck Peter up. They like beat him up. Like Norman really fucks him up. Simultaneously, there was this other crossover going on with like the Ultimates, and I think Punisher was in it, and Punisher shoots Peter too. And so the fatigue from the battle with Norman and from getting shot from the Punisher is what kills the Ultimate Peter Parker.
Yes. And going back to the Norman Osborn from in this movie, yes, it was cool to see that design, but at the same time, it was kind of a letdown because Norman is generally the arch nemesis, and he seemed to be reduced here significantly.
Totally agree. He's like a henchman. I mean, Green Goblin's my favorite Marvel villain, so yeah, that it is like a step down. But I was willing to forgive that. There's quite a few villains in here, and I would say that a lot of people have their kind of ultimate design in this too.
Yeah. You
have Tombstone, Scorpion is in it too, like kind of for a little bit. The Prowler is in it, and the Prowler is like the Prowler in the Ultimate comics.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's where we should kind of talk about, the voice acting and the casting and the arcs. Okay. So like the movie starts out with Miles being a student in this one prep school he doesn't want to go to. And to be rebellious, he likes to go hang out with his uncle, who Miles' cop father had a falling out with and doesn't really necessarily trust or think is a good influence. And the uncle is played by, I always fuck up his name whenever I say it.
Marshala Ali.
Thank you so much. Marshala Ali. Who I just think that like his delivery is so great as the uncle.
Yes. And he gives us the iconic hey.
Yes. You are always really great at pointing out the voice actors and things and like pointing out who does a good job. I think that the voice acting in general, even though it's a lot of famous people, they really bring so much personality to these characters. I think he does a fantastic job as the Prowler, and I just think that Miles is excellent. Because they could have cast Miles as like sort of like a prepubescent kind of squeaky voiced, more like a kid. But even though his voice can get kind of high pitched, I gotta say his fucking name now too, Shameik Moore. He's got this sort of deadpan tone that he uses often, which I think is just great.
Yeah, I actually didn't know who he was before this movie.
Yeah,
I know that he was in the Get Down and that movie Dope, which is also funny because the guy who plays Flash Thompson in the Tom Holland movies is in that as well.
Oh, okay.
But like I had to look that up. Like I didn't know who he was before, and I still haven't seen those things. I think I would like to though.
Yeah.
I also think his dad, Jefferson, played by Brian David Tyree, who is also fantastic. Liv Shriver as Kingpin is fantastic.
Yes.
And I have a extreme soft spot in my heart for Nick Johnson as Peter B. Parker.
Yes.
I told the story before, but during COVID, he like just put something out on Twitter saying like, send me your kid's name or whatever, and he'll like record like a message for them. And we sent it in for Brandon. We told him that his middle name was Parker. And he did it. Like he sent it. Like, and it's fantastic. And I should have got the file and I could have played it. Just only like 20 seconds or something like that. But forever fan because of that.
That's so cool. I totally forgot you told me that story. I kind of almost want to cry just hearing that. He is really good as Peter B. Parker. We can kind of talk about him a little bit more. You mentioned the dad, Brian Tyree Henry, playing Jefferson Davis. I feel like he just kind of came out of nowhere. I know he was on that show Atlanta, but he's in like so much genre stuff these days.
Yeah, I mean he's also who was he in Eternals?
Fastos,
yep. And what else did I see him recently?
He was in that Godzilla movie, Godzilla versus Kong. He's in the next one that's coming out.
Bullet Train he was in.
He was in Bullet Train, that's right.
I liked him a lot in that.
Yeah.
He pops up a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I picture like all the voice actors that I don't know, like when I see their character in the movie, I'm like, oh, they look like that. That's what the guy looks like. And I'm like, no, he doesn't look like that. But he's really good as the dad. The dad's arc, like, see, in a well done movie, you can like do so much with just small little bits. Like the dad's role is just a small part of this whole movie, but it's so good.
Yeah. You can tell that he's kind of disconnected from his son in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then he also doesn't like Spider-Man
as
a cop who thinks he doesn't agree with his methods. And then, just those two things combining together, just kind of alienates him from his dad a little bit. And then they're trying to kind of reconnect throughout the movie. And then, at the end, they kind of finally do. Everything comes full circle. Like, one of the great lines from the trailer was when he's the dad drives Miles to school. He's in the cop car, and he uses the PA to say, "Oh, I have to hear you say it," and he makes him say it. And then like that's how Miles leaves it off with him at the end. He says, he hugs him as Spider-Man and says, "I love you," and then he's like, "What?"
Yeah. It's so good on an emotional level. It's so funny too because the dad's reaction. So good. Like every single okay, this is what I think I said this in our notes, but I didn't necessarily say this on this video yet. Like with comedies, like let's say we're just looking at this as a comedy, right? Or like an animated kids comedy. There's always going to be jokes that don't land There might be a whole bunch of good ones, but there's always some that don't land. When a movie is like cool and hip and stuff, there's always going to be parts that are like you're kind of trying too hard. This movie just somehow it's like it never feels like it's trying too hard. None of the jokes bomb. All of them.
Yeah, every joke in this movie is extremely organic. Like I feel like a lot of times in movies, there'll be some improv on set and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like everything was written with purpose in
Yep.
this and performed excellently.
Yep.
So the jokes feel fitting and earned and not too over the top. And it's not just like, hey, we thought this was funny, so let's do it there. Like everything is great. And there's tons of little like Spider-Man jokes around as well.
Yes. Yes.
Nods.
So let's talk about Miles and let's talk about kind of how he fits into the story. He, it doesn't like going to this one school. He wants to go to his old school. He reaches out to his uncle. And I was telling you before that one of those moments I knew I was watching a movie I was going to love was that Comics Code thing. But then another part was when his uncle started playing Hypnotized by Notorious B.I.G. and he's running through the city. I love that part so much.
Yeah. God, the music in this movie is so good and so fitting and perfect for everything.
Right. Okay, so I'm so glad I have this conversation with you, man. Like, because one other thing that's important about this movie, this is so fucking important, this part right here, is that superhero movies in general tend to cater to guys like us. It's like, oh, you like the 80s, right? You were in the 80s, right? So here, we're going to play fucking I Need a Hero or something, or we're going to play Metallica or something, right? This is like a movie that's made for someone that's like fucking Miles's age.
Yeah, totally. I mean, although you can argue, Notorious B.I.G. is more our age, but
all right, come on now, devil's advocate. Right, but like another great part, and speaking of how great the music is when they're playing Sunflower by Post Malone, and he's sitting there drawing. I love that.
I also love the tiny little detail that he doesn't know the words.
Mm-hmm,
It's kind of like singing half the words, which is something that we all do when we first hear a song we like, sort of, you pick up little words at the time. I thought that was such a nice little touch there.
Love it.
I think my favorite use of a song is when he finally gets the costume and they're playing What's Up Danger?
Oh,
which is pretty much like the most like incredible sequence in the movie.
That is the best part of the whole movie is when he does that. The leap of faith.
And second to that too, I mean, this isn't music related, but one of my other favorite moments, and this probably ties in with a movie, a moment that the movie was in good hands or in good shape. This was by far the best Stan Lee cameo. The line where it always fits eventually. The pause in that is so goddamn perfect. It killed me in the theater because this movie came out like a month after he died. So like that was one of those like incredibly powerful moments. And like I said, by far the best Stan Lee cameo.
Totally agree. Watching the trailer for the new movie, they show little bits from this movie before the actual trailer kicks in, before we get to like Miguel O'Hara. And they play the music from this movie in that trailer. And I guess like it made me really appreciate the music, the actual score for this movie too. Because it has this sort of note that like really evokes that sense of wonder. Like certain superhero scores really have that kind of sense of wonder to them, like the Superman theme by John Williams, or like Danny Elfman's Spider-Man theme, right? Like this, it's a bit more subtle than those other themes, but it still is like this, like, oh, you're Spider-Man, like look how cool it is. The world is open to you, and it's just it's so good. The actual score too.
Yep, fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, so here. Watch this. I'll say my one nitpick, okay? I love the uncle, but I feel like the Prowler, when they use him in this, it's like it's kind of too quick that they go through the whole arc where he finds out he's a Prowler and he gets killed.
Yeah, I understand that, but with any Spider-Man origin, there's always a loss somewhere. I think this was a fitting one. He looked to his uncle for like comfort, when he felt alienated by everywhere else, and then just to have him see that I think that's a great reaction. It's a great thing to show. Would it have been? I don't know. Like, I don't think they could have done it better, honestly. The amount of time he had, the relationship he had with them, and the reveal, and I guess a little more than halfway through the movie. The impact of that is huge on Miles and in the movie, and I think if you would have prolonged it or extended the character to another movie or something like that, it would have diminished it.
Okay.
And like I said, somebody would have had to die otherwise. And it varies continuity. It's either his mom or his dad. Maybe that's kind of trying to throw you for a loop. And they went with Uncle Aaron instead.
Yeah. Which, just like Uncle Ben, it's the uncle, right?
Oh my God, yeah, duh.
All right, well, look, I agree with what you just said too, and even like when I was thinking about, that's my one nitpick. It's like if they made like a whole movie where he was fighting the Prowler and they found out the Prowler was his uncle, I think that would have been too much. It would have been like stretched out too thin.
See, that would have been good if this was just a Miles movie, but it's not. And the fact that we have all these other characters, we need a larger motivation. Speaking of which, I really like the motivation of Kingpin in this.
Yeah.
He lost his family, from his own actions, and he's trying to find a replacement in the multiverse.
Yeah. Well, so you know what? Let's just talk about all the villains because we already started with Prowler. With Kingpin, like it's interesting, right? Because I think Kingpin's son does get killed in the comics, and I think he actually is like a crime lord too, called the Rose. Do you remember having like his card?
Now, I don't remember him getting killed.
No.
But yeah, he is active as the Rose right now.
Oh, okay.
Like, even in the current Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay. I remember like being a kid and getting the Rose like figure, the villain card, like from Marvel Series 2,
Wow, I don't remember that going back that far though.
Yeah. Like there's a card of him, and because he kind of looks like he has a ski mask and he's got like a button-down shirt and stuff.
Yep.
But then Kingpin's like wife dying is always a big part of the arc. I think it's even a part of the Daredevil show, right?
Yes.
Yeah. His design is great. He's just like a fucking wall with a fat face on it.
It looks unnatural, but it's so imposing. And they really just played up that large, bulky strength aspect of Kingpin.
Right.
And to a factor of like 1,000.
Right. Super imposing, and he has this whole like group of villains. I mean, he has the Goblin, Tombstone. We already said that there's Scorpion. One of the things that was interesting about Spider-Man Homecoming was that Mac Gargan is in that movie. The Scorpion.
Yes.
He's on the Staten Island Ferry of all places, and they just never use him again, ever.
Well, he was in the post-credit scene.
Oh yeah,
Homecoming as well.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't he?
Maybe like, what does he go up to Michael Keaton and like say like, can you?
Yeah, they meet in jail. Yeah.
Okay.
We should talk or something. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because that actor, he's a Hispanic actor, and he's in I think his name's Michael Mando, and he's in not Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and he's really great in that. And I just thought like he'd be a great Scorpion if they were going to kind of go that route.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I wanted to mention with Prowler too. Is that first of all, the Prowler's design is really awesome, but then for the Prowler, he has his own theme in the movie, and his music kind of sounds almost like a sound effect when he shows up.
Yeah.
It's like, I think he's really scary.
Yeah, no, they make him very threatening, and it is a little scary. Yeah, I had a little bit of hesitation bringing. I didn't bring my son to see this in the theater, but because he only would have been 2, but he probably saw it when he was like 4 or something like that.
and he's a Spider-Man fan, right?
Yes. Yes and no. He kind of thinks Spider-Man's a little like lame right now, but I'm sure that'll change again when he sees the movie.
Yeah. Well, he likes
Venom again,
Oh, okay. Well, Venom's more of a big guy, and I know that he likes big guys.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked about the villains. Let's talk about the Spider-Verse people, like the people from different realities. Do you have a particular favorite? Oh, Peter B. Parker, right?
Yeah, Peter Parker, yes. But if I had to pick one besides that, and besides Miles, I would probably pick Spider-Ham. Actually,
Spider-Ham.
I remember I had comics that with Peter Parker when I was a kid, and I really don't think there could have been a better voice than John Mulaney for it.
Yeah, he's pretty great.
He doesn't do very much in the movie.
No.
But I thought it was a very interesting. It was a good casting, honestly. I mean, really, all of them are great. Nick Cage as Spider-Man Noir it worked really well. I know he's a fan of the character of Spider-Man, so it was cool to see him in that. And Haley Steinfeld is pretty much great in everything, always.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, that the Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider costume, or whatever you want to call it, is so good. Like that was like a character that was supposed to be like a one-off in something, but the costume was so good that she was like everywhere for a while.
Yep. Yeah. I'm very interested in Spider-Gwen or she's Spider-Woman in this, and then in the regular Marvel comics, I think they try to call her Ghost Spider since there's already a couple of Spider-Women already to begin with.
Yeah.
But what I was looking for in this one, I was like, okay, does she ever kind of mention that, like, okay, well, here's the thing. Let me rephrase this. It's interesting that, like, Peter B. Parker doesn't go, oh, it's Gwen when he sees her. And she obviously is mourning the loss of her Peter Parker. But I think that, like, they just couldn't hit all these emotional beats for all these characters because it's just, you have to have it within 2 hours. And I think that's why Peter B. Parker doesn't recognize her.
Well, yeah, I think part of that is that there was a certain like Gwen Stacy erasure from the original Tobey Maguire movies.
Yeah.
I know Gwen is in the third one and all that, but that solidified to the general populace Spider-Man and MJ. Where to a lot of people it's always Spider-Man and Gwen.
Right.
Because that impact on him is so huge. And I even though also Gwen is the love interest in the Andrew Garfield movie still too, is like they never really I think that it was really solidified in people's minds, Spider-Man MJ. And the other thing too is that Peter B. Parker is older. He says he's been Spider-Man for 20-something years, and she's like a teenager, so that's a little weird.
Yeah.
So,
but like Peter Parker in the modern comics does have reaction when he sees Spider-Gwen.
Yes, he does. Yeah, but she, I guess she still kind of is younger, like college.
Yeah, I mean, just
then again, Peter Parker in the comics isn't supposed to be 45, 50 years old like we think he practically is because he's been around so long, Like
right.
He's supposed to be like, under 30 or around 30, maybe a little over, something like that.
Right.
So it's not that crazy of a difference, probably.
The general origin for Spider-Man is that he got bit when he was 16, right? And sometimes I think 15. But so then, like, if he was Spider-Man for 20 years, he'd be like 36. And then the Peter Parker that's played by Chris Pine, he's 26 when he dies.
Yeah.
And then, like, Miles, I think Miles is like 16 or 15, right?
Yeah.
High
school age, yeah.
Yeah. For me, I would say that my favorite Spider-Verse character would be Peter B. Parker. And I don't think he was originally, but watching it a second time around, I was like, oh, yeah, he's just so, like, he's just so, it's like so sweet, his whole character arc, his little facial reactions. There's one part where he's like on the bus and he's just like listening to Gwen and Miles talking, and kind of does this face and little subtle things like that I think are just so great.
He's a very different Peter Parker, but he's very relatable, I guess,
Yes, agreed. One thing I kind of forgot to mention this to you, but like when Miles gets bit by the spider has an Alchemex on it. And it also does the little glitch thing like the people from other universes do. So the assumption is that the spider's from another reality, right?
Yes, that's what I would think, yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember in the comics if, like, because I'm pretty sure the same spider that bit Peter bit Miles, too, in the comic. In the Ultimate comic.
Yeah, although I don't remember how they explain it because there's obviously a gap in time between bitings. But I think you're right. I think it was that's the same spider escaped somehow or was stolen or something. And it bites him.
Yeah, what people might not know or have read is that in the Ultimate Comics, Peter Parker is only like 15 or 16, and then like he's only Spider-Man for like a year or a little more, and then Miles becomes Spider-Man.
Yeah,
like he dies.
even though that was going on like what, like 7, 8 years, something like that.
At least, yeah. And so we didn't mention, you mentioned the Nicolas Cage noir Spider-Man, but then there's also the sort of the anime inspired Spider. And
Yeah.
it's interesting too, because when I was doing research, they were saying that they were going to use silk, and I'm actually really glad they didn't use silk. Well, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I liked it. There was something different. Silk, silk would require no. Oh man, but silk is very tied to the inheritors, so they really need to save silk for the inheritors.
Yeah,
if they ever do that, if they ever do that in this next movie or any future ones.
Yeah.
And for the people who don't know who the inheritors are, there's this whole concept that was created in the J. Michael Straczynski Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, about there being a spider totem, and it's this whole mystical aspect, and that there are these weird vampire people that eat spider totems, and that's like the the crux of the Spider-Verse comic, is these things want to just eat all the Spider-Man.
Yes, and that might sound really weird, but it's kind of fun because Spider-Man has so many animal-themed enemies. And so to kind of make it have like this mystical origin that connects to animals, I think that's actually really cool.
It was really cool. It is a lot better than I made it sound right now.
Right.
And honestly, that original, at least the original comic crossover is one of my favorite like crossovers or big comic events like ever. Honestly,
Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's really well done, and there's that sense of danger that the characters could die because they're always getting eaten by those inheritor guys,
Yeah.
So he's infected by or bitten by a spider from another reality, and it's Alchemax, and Alchemax is in this movie. And actually, that reminds me, we didn't mention one villain that I think is kind of prominent. We didn't mention Doc Ock.
Yes, and this was actually a huge surprise.
Yes.
I think you said this in your notes too. Like when I watched this, I did not see that coming.
Nope.
At all. But man, that was a great little twist.
Yes. Yeah, it's Olivia Octavius. Yeah.
Olivia Octavius. Just that little turnaround there, like it was so unexpected and great.
Yeah.
And you also called out that in the comics there was a relationship between Otto and Aunt May.
Right.
And you said that, and I happened to notice too that you said, did they call you Doc Ock? And she says, no. He says, no, my friends call me Liv. Right. And then when Aunt May first sees her, she says, oh, it's Liv.
Exactly.
That was very interesting.
Yep. I love that. Yeah, the idea that like this version of Doc Ock and Aunt May had a relationship too, which I'm totally cool with. I love this Doc Ock's design too. I like that, like her tentacles look like they're like kind of like rubbery or made out of plastic, and there seems to be like some sort of like liquid or something that makes them bulk up and attack.
Yes, I thought it was a very cool, unique design too.
Yeah, and then we should mention that she's played by Kathryn Hahn.
Yes, Agatha Harkness herself.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm just trying to think of what else we should cover.
The most defining thing that Kathryn Hahn has ever done was Step Brothers to me.
Oh, okay.
She played Will Ferrell's brother's wife.
Okay.
There's this scene where she like goes in the bathroom with I can't remember his name, John C. Reilly's character.
Yeah.
And like they have sex, and then she goes up to the urinal and like puts her leg up, and I thought that was like the funniest thing.
Jesus. Yeah, she's one of those.
You didn't know who she was before. Like that was one of the first things she's ever done. So it was such a like defining like scene for me.
Isn't she in that movie? Is it called Grown Ups? What's the movie with like Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne?
I don't know.
The Neighbors. The Neighbors.
Neighbors. No, I don't think she's in that.
She's not. She's not like because there's like this couple that they have that are friends too, and she's kind of ridiculous in that too.
Maybe.
Like I mean, not to we're talking kind of about weird sexual stuff with Kathryn Hahn, but like I'm pretty sure there's this one part where like McLovin has a giant penis and he has it like wrapped around her neck in that movie. McLovin.
Yeah, I know McLovin. Man, I don't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going down a weird rabbit hole, but
Yeah.
What do you call it? But I mean, just Catherine Hahn is awesome, and then in this movie, Doc Ock is great. And I just like you was like, oh, I had no idea that was who that was. Pretty sure it's called Neighbors, and it's with Seth Rogen, and then also what's his face is in it too. The guy from High School Musical.
Zac Efron.
Zac Efron, right?
So then I don't think that's her.
Okay, is it Carla Gugino? Who's the? Okay, all right. Well, whatever. I'm going down a rabbit hole now. Let's go back to this movie. Is there anything else you want to say about Spider-Verse before we do our rankings?
We talked about all the major characters. I think we talked about the animation, the music. We talked about the Stan Lee cameo. That was one of the points I really wanted to hit on. And I guess that's it.
Okay.
I'm excited. I'm very excited for this next movie. I do have a fear that there's just no chance they can live up to this one. But I'm still excited.
Yeah. I think that there's something special about Lord and Miller, and for this next one, they are both of the writers on the movie. None of them are directing the movie, and there's 3 new directors. It's not any of the directors from the first movie. Yep. But I think just having them involved is a good sign. It's interesting, a little side note, but like they were making Solo before Ron Howard was given the job. And I wonder what the hell that would have been.
Yeah, that was one of those weird troubled productions that you heard a lot about. And I think kind of was damaging to the film. But apparently they were trying to make it a little too jokey, I guess. I don't know. It didn't fit with the other Star Wars movies. I liked Solo.
Yeah. I thought it was good. But yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother video in itself.
Yeah.
So why don't we jump over to our Spider-Man rankings?
Yeah.
Have your rankings changed since watching this movie again?
I'm struggling with it. I'm not sure. I mean, really, because I always mention I have a recency bias. So I just rewatched this movie, so now I'm all about this movie again.
Yeah.
We also know that my favorite MCU movie is No Way Home. So it's like, which one is better?
Yeah.
And it's so hard. It really is so hard to choose for me.
And like, both have very similar subject matter too.
Yeah, I agree. But like they're really like neck and neck for the top spot to me, and that's really the only change is that previously I would have had Spider-Verse as my number 2 movie. Out of all the Spider-Man only movies, and we also had Venom in there for whatever reason last time. Those are at the bottom.
Yeah.
But maybe it's good we include them because there are these other movies coming. We do have to watch Morbius at some point.
Oh God!
Craven is supposedly coming out this year.
Wow.
There is that Madam Web movie that sounds kind of interesting. Actually, it has like a decent cast, and I believe we have Silk in that movie. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. We probably should rank these all the Sony Spider related movies.
Sure.
Eventually.
Yeah.
So if I were to go through it now, my least favorite at number 11 is Venom: Let There Be Carnage.
Good.
Oh God.
Feel the same way.
Venom is next.
Got it.
Which is just like I wouldn't have ever thought that I would dislike a movie more than that.
Yeah.
But it happened. I have Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Same here.
Spider-Man 3.
Interesting.
Really? You know what though? I remember rewatching Spider-Man 3 at some point in the last like year or two. It definitely gets more of a bad rap than it deserves.
Yeah.
But I have Amazing Spider-Man 2, then Spider-Man 3, then Far From Home, then Homecoming, then Amazing Spider-Man, then Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 1, and the 1 and 2 I said before. I can't choose. Like I'm actually going to call this a tie for first place because they really are on the same level to me. They're so good.
Yeah. So okay, interesting. our lists are a little bit different. Okay, so at the very bottom, I don't have numbers written next to these, but at the very bottom, we are exactly tied. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, then Venom, then Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, you know me, you know that I am actually not a fan of Spider-Man Far From Home. I always
Okay.
rank that pretty low in my MCU,
Yep.
so that's what's next for me. Then there's Amazing Spider-Man. Then
Wait. Did you say Amazing Spider-Man 2 already?
yeah,
Oh, you did? Okay. I was going to
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
like, there's no way you can rank Amazing Spider-Man below Amazing Spider-Man 2.
right. Yeah. So I'll just do it real quick. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Venom, Amazing Spider-Man 2,
Okay.
Spider-Man Far From Home,
Okay.
then Amazing Spider-Man, then Spider-Man 3, then Spider-Man Homecoming, then Spider-Man 1, then Spider-Man No Way Home, then Spider-Man 2, and then finally Spider-Man Into the Multiverse.
Spider-Verse.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, right.
You know what? You mentioned you play Spider-Man 2 higher than Spider-Man 1. And honestly, I have to say, like, those two are like neck and neck to me, too.
Yeah.
It's so hard to choose between those two for me. Really, my only flaw with the first movie is Green Goblin's costume.
Yeah.
And 2 is just so good. But
It's so good.
it's
Yeah.
just that first Spider-Man movie, that the first Tobey Maguire one, is just kind of shows you, like, holy shit, they can make superhero movies, you know? And I know we had, Blade really started this whole trend there. And X-Men was first before the Spider-Man one, right?
Yes, because I think you could see the trailer for Spider-Man during the X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Right. Well, no, Spider-Man actually shows up randomly in a cutscene from X-Men too. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, like on YouTube when we're done recording, look it up. Like Spider-Man like swings into the Statue of Liberty at one point. Is like, oh, I guess you don't need my help or something. And he like swings away.
Holy shit! Now I don't remember that.
Yeah. No, I know. Like for me, Spider-Man 2, I really would have put that as number 1. But one of the things I told you in this video is that like I don't think that Into the Spider-Verse has any flaws, and I think Spider-Man 2 has a couple of small flaws, but otherwise this movie I don't feel like has any flaws. And so I love Spider-Man 2, but I think this movie is the better movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think we should also point out, did you end up watching that video of James Gunn ranking his 5 favorite superhero movies?
I saw a list of it. I didn't even know there was a video of it, actually.
Okay. I mean, and it's not even just superhero movies, because he does The History of Violence, he does Old Boy, he has Deadpool as his number 5, and then he has Superman 1978, and then his number 1 is Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse.
Totally valid choice.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we did our Spider-Verse conversation. I'm really glad that you wanted to watch this and talk about this. Next week is going to be Bumblebee then, right?
Bumblebee, yeah. Another Haley Steinfeld movie.
Oh, there we go. Nice. Keep it going. Then we're going to do True Grit after that. Nice. Cool, man. Well, if you guys like our video, make sure that you guys have subscribed. And so watch Bumblebee before next week, and you can join the conversation with me and Brian.
And then also come back in about 3 weeks when we actually review Across the Spider-Verse Part 1.
Boom. Yes. So make sure you guys are subscribed, and we'll see you guys